Good morning. My name is Tyson Heusser. I live in Gridley, California. Not originally from Gridley. I moved here from southeastern Idaho, Preston, Idaho. And Preston is where home is. I grew up there following my grandpa's shirt tails. He raised probably one of the most misbehaved herds of Simmental cattle in all the valley. There's some truth to that statement, but I don't want to take the credibility away from my grandfather. He still to this day is probably my greatest influence in life. I just think that in his prime, his go at it mentality ended up rubbing off on his herd, and I think his herd ended up taking it out on me. It seemed like every time I did get just 5 feet away from my grandpa's shirt tails, they had my number. And there was one cow in particular. I don't know if it were that I was wearing a beacon or what it was, but she would get me, and she would get me often. She'd get me in the dirt, the mud, under fences. It was a rodeo. I grew up around livestock my whole life, not as predominant as some, but for me, they've been there from start until current. And I think because of that, I grew a love for the sport of rodeo at a really young age. And I rodeoed myself a bit. I rode saddle bronc as a discipline. I've also been chasing an agriculture career for quite some time. I've held a handful of ag related careers at this point, and I've also attended a handful of colleges focused on agriculture as well. Along the same roads of agriculture, I just recently graduated from the California Ag Leadership Program. And this program was a phenomenal experience. It's a 17-month-long program. I was one of 24 accepted into this thing. But I mention it because if you are out there and you are pursuing agriculture and haven't heard of that program or are aware of it, I highly suggest looking into it and learning about it. I wish it upon anyone to go through the experiences that program has to offer. It's absolutely phenomenal. Currently, this day in my age, I'm still chasing my passion for rodeo. I'm mastering my ability to team rope, and I've got a movement that I'm passionate about, and that's reestablishing an intercollegiate rodeo program at Butte College, which is a community college in Northern California. I organized this speech and didn't get a chance to deliver it. It was supposed to go to a rough stock clinic, a 2-day rough stock clinic, and good outturn it sounded like, but the first day I think was too full of a day of rough stock and not too many returning people for the second day of the clinic, and I didn't get a chance to deliver. So being that I had prepared my thoughts, I thought I'd share them. I just had a few stories to share that I thought would have been helpful at this clinic, and I also wanted to introduce me, myself, as a person that's in the area that's interested in getting more actively involved, particularly in the sport of rodeo, but for the reason of benefiting the community and the people around me. But when I was younger, I raced dirt bikes pretty heavy, and I was involved in a pretty bad accident, a little severe accident. I broke my back. I completely bursted my T9 vertebrae. I woke up in ICU after surgeries, and they informed me that 78% of my spinal cord was damaged, some of it severed, and the likelihood of me being paraplegic for the remainder of my life was pretty for certain. I ended up going from ICU to this rehabilitation center, and in this rehabilitation center, they were kind of working with you to kind of mentally cope with being a paraplegic, how to take this new card that you're dealt and run with it with basically a new set of legs. And I think back at that time in my life, and even though the truth was true, I was paralyzed from the level of injury down. I think back at that current time And never once did I not genuinely believe that I was going to heal from that 100% and tenfold, even though the realities were there, and I knew the severity of the accident. Like I said, I just genuinely believed in my outcome, to the point where I would skip out on a lot of stuff that this rehabilitation center had to offer, only because I didn't feel like it applied to me with my 100% outcome in mind, and that I believed in. I was in the halls, I was going up and down, I was on the railways, I was doing everything I felt like I needed to do to that pertained to that goal, and not really accepting the alternative. I considered myself pretty steady at that time, as far as focused on what I believed is an outcome. And I didn't let anything, I didn't let a doubt enter my mind. I didn't let anyone steer my path. I felt like an elephant, just strong, sturdy strides forward towards what I believed as a genuinely believed as an outcome. This process went on for quite some time, a year and a half it took to recuperate from this injury. And I will tell you, things did start slowly coming back, and I'm sitting in my pickup right now, but if I weren't, you would see that I rehabilitated from that 100%. I don't think anyone could look at me and even know that, get a clue that I was in an accident of that severity. But I wanted to share this story. I know it's a grim topic, especially associated with rodeo, where injuries are prevalent in the sport of rodeo, but that's not my point. My point in sharing this was it was something that I learned from that experience and from the extreme of it that I know to be true, and that's to genuinely believe in your abilities and your outcomes, and they'll come. There's no doubt. Another story I'd like to share is about a dream come true. And in my introduction, I told you I was from Preston, Idaho. Well, Preston, Idaho, we have a famous Prestonite rodeo. And as a kid, I sat in these grandstands of this PRCA rodeo, and I developed a dream of one day becoming a rodeo cowboy. And I carried that dream with me for quite some time. There came a point in my life where I felt like I was ready to pursue it. I entered a rodeo school that came around. It was a national level school, Sankey Rodeo School. And from that school, I learned the basic fundamentals of the sport of saddle bronc. I got an idea on the equipment that was needed, and an overview of the sport to where I knew how to kind of what I needed to do to get off the ground and start rodeoing. And I took my experience from that school, and I ended up developing the venture of rodeo. I developed a fundraising event that consisted of a guest lodge, a dinner, a band, and a silent auction. But the support that I had behind me was phenomenal. My family, my friends, and the community that were behind me. I had friends come all the way out from California to attend this and to support, and it was definitely those people around me, that love and support, that ended up getting me off the ground and even capable of pursuing that dream. Because there was donors involved, I took it very serious. I succeeded with funds. I raised enough funds to get equipment and to get me down the road a little bit and get started. And because there's donors involved, I ended up taking it serious. I did 3 rodeos a week, and I didn't miss one. The later part of that season came along, and I started to stay on these horses, and it took a long time to start staying on these horses. And for anyone entering the sport of rodeo, I think that's a pill you have to swallow. It really does take quite a while before you start staying on these horses, and not to get discouraged, but it is kind of the truth. August is now upon us, and that famous Prestonite rodeo is now in the books. That same Prestonite rodeo that I sat as a kid in the grandstands and develop that dream of being a rodeo cowboy. Well, the day is here. I drew a Saturday night performance, which is the best of all 3 nights. You know, and the crowd is packed. But the neat thing is it's packed with my family, my friends, and the community that supported me to get me off the ground and in that direction in the first place. To top things off, I ended up, the stock contractor at the rodeo was Barty Rodeo Company. Bud Kirby was his name, and I drew a national finals bucking horse. I drew Round Robin, which is his creme de la creme, and I rode a national finals bucking horse in front of my hometown. It was the prettiest bronc ride I've ever made. And I got off that horse after 8 seconds, and the roar of that crowd was just phenomenal. You know, and I know at the moment I was hearing it directed towards me in the moment, but I swear I've never heard a roar that loud come from that arena. I mean, it was a phenomenal moment, and for me, literally a dream come true. You know, without a doubt, what made that so special of a moment was my friends and my family and that my community that all supported me. In fact, they were the ones that made it all happen in the first place. And with that, I'll conclude, and I want to thank you for taking the time and hearing me out and allowing me to introduce myself. I hope in my short, brief stories that I may have convinced you of the power of genuinely believing in an outcome, because it is true. I hope that I instilled with you an analogy of an elephant. You know, as you're going after your aspirations of strong, steady strides towards your goal, and not letting anyone deter you or distract you or influence your beliefs otherwise. And lastly, I hope that I pointed out to you the importance of loving and supporting everyone around you, because it's that return and love and support that you're going to need in order to accomplish anything substantial. And with that, I thank you, and enjoy your day.